Good morning, sun. Good morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and in love. Good morning, sun. Good morning, sun. Good morning, life. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good morning, sun. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good morning, sun. Good morning, life.
And welcome to an evening edition of I Need Coffee. It was a very busy day, so there was no chance of me getting to this earlier. Let me just adjust my volume here and let's make sure all of the streaming plumbing is working properly. It is more challenging than it may look. Okay, that looks good. And that sounds good. So, earlier today I did a live stream and it looked like I was using a modem for my video live stream. It was quite bad. So, I have since rebooted all of my network gear, had my family yell at me for doing that, and now I think everything is working good. So, the quality looks pretty good based on what I'm seeing. So welcome and good evening. What day is it? It is Thursday. I don't even know. And I hope you're having a great evening. Tonight, I would like to welcome the new BC Container Helper. And if you may have seen some tweets, or if you're subscribed to Freddie Christensen's blog, you should have received an email notification about his new blog post introducing his new branch, I guess, his new version of BcContainerHelper, surprisingly named BcContainerHelper. So obviously it's a long time in coming for the name change, and it turned out to be a good opportunity for him to transition to a new branch, have different versioning, new management, and new architecture of the solution. So I think it's a great opportunity to make that change now. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so housekeeping. I do stream. You can comment on any of the platforms, Periscope, YouTube, and Twitch. And I do have a little chat window open. But it seems that most people watch afterwards, which I totally understand and can fully relate to. And so if you are watching later, I do recommend watching the stream or the video on YouTube. The quality is much better, not just the video, but the audio. Periscope seems to be very popular because it shows up in the Twitter feed, but the video is really compressed, poor quality, and the audio I found of other streams is really bad. The volume is very low. So I'd recommend hopping over to YouTube after the stream is done and watching it there. So you can always comment on the YouTube videos. I get notifications. So if you miss the live stream, Not a word, no problem at all. Just comment on the YouTube video if you have any questions or see what mistakes I made. I'm sure there are many. And I'll get notifications of those comments, and I'm happy to reply and share what I know about what I just presented. So with that, let's move on. Okay, so this is Freddie's BC Container Helper announcement. It is on the community.dynamics.com site under Freddie's blog. And this was published, looks like, on the 11th of August. It's been a few days. And I see on Twitter that several people have tried it, and it seems to work fine for them. So that's great news. They didn't apparently have any issues. Now, he does mention you want to be careful. So make sure to read the full blog post. Don't just jump into this and switch out your production environments. You could have something that potentially breaks. So he says, check it out, but be cautious and, take the necessary precautions if you're upgrading a production environment, or if you have pipelines or CI/CD processes or automated processes that depend on Nav Container Helper. You may need to tweak a few things. Okay, so just a summary of some key points. He covers why he made the change. He talks about his desire to improve stability and adopt the SEMVer semantic versioning practices. Basically, from what I read this, the description, this link is actually slightly incorrect. This is pointing to the version 1.0. Sorry about that. There's actually a 2.0 version. So if you go to the semver.org website, make sure to click on the 2.0 version and you'll see just an updated version. But my reading of it is that besides just the understandability and readability and predictability, the version numbering system and just having a standard, one of the primary reasons for adopting SEMVer and using that practice is due to dependencies. One moment, my light is falling. Okay. It's the second time that's happened. I need a real light stand. So the reason is to deal with dependencies. So the version numbers can indicate a breaking change, and that can relate to dependencies and other factors, backwards compatibility, breaking changes, things like that. So it makes total sense. It's some type of standard to work with. Awesome. I'm all on board with that. He shares information about a file directory change, provides instructions on installation, and indicates that this BC Container Helper now supports multi-tenant containers for your Docker. So that's kind of nice. And Nav Container Helper has been moved to a different GitHub branch, and there is now a dev branch for, he's working on a dev branch, and apparently those roll into a pre-release version of BC Container Helper and then a main stable release. So all good stuff. It's not a long blog post, but I recommend reading it thoroughly. He does bold some line items, and there's quite a bit of information in the post, so definitely check that out. So the general installation process is to stop all Business Central containers. So he does make that clear. You should stop all running containers before updating to BC Container Helper. Personally, on my test server, what I'm about to show, I'm going to remove everything. I'm going to remove all existing containers. I'm going to remove all images, because right now my Docker server is just a test server. It's what I use to practice, learn, and test and play with it. So I can delete everything, wipe it, redo it, and I won't lose a thing, which I think is the general concept of using Business Central containers. You don't want to get too attached to a Business Central container. You want to create it, do your builds, do your testing, and then you should be fine just deleting it, having it go away. All of your processes ideally should be scripted, automated, test data, deployment, everything. I'm not there yet, but that's where I'm going. So after I remove all containers and images, I will do the install module with PowerShell get just to make sure it's updated. That's optional, but I'll just run it just in case, or I'll check the version just to see what I'm running and what the latest available is. Then we'll install BcContainerHelper, and I think he says that one of the new features is currently only available in the allow pre-release. I don't know if that was the config file. I'll have to check. But that's another, there's a new flag on this allow pre-release on the install module command. So be aware of that. It's not like the old nav container helper where it was just install module and there was just, you get the latest version. Okay, what do we have next? One of the new features is that there is a new directory and a new configuration file. And this configuration file allows you to change the folder of the BcContainerHelper files, I think. I need to read that I probably won't use it right now, but I'll see. I don't quite understand the value of doing that unless you just want to have the scripts in a different location. I don't think they're that large, so I don't know why you would have a preference. Oh, yeah, there I noted. This feature for the JSON file is currently in the pre-release version only. But that's as of 1.00 stable release. So I'm assuming that JSON config file will make it into the stable branch pretty soon. Okay, so with that overview, definitely read his blog post, though, to make sure you got everything. Let's dive in. And okay, so this is my Docker server. Let me make this bigger. So I've just written up notes. I'll probably put this in a blog post so that, there we go, fix the lighting, so that you have, if you want to have this list of commands that I used, I'll post them so you don't have to type them out from a video. So let's start with stopping all containers. So first, let's take a look and see what I have here. Oops. And let me scoot back a little. Okay. So let's do a docker ps-a. And I had a command that showed only the names and IDs. Let me see if I can find it. Docker rm. Okay, hold up. It's a nice command, so it's worth finding. One moment. Where would that be? On my blog. So on my blog, which is where I'm going, let me just pop this over here. I'm checking for Docker commands in a search. So my own blog is just my own knowledge repository. Basic Docker commands that I use. Let's see if I added it in here. Darn it. I did not. Okay. So if you don't know, you can, PowerShell's pretty good about saving old commands. Hey, look at that. Okay, so here it is. So let me just save this. Okay, and this command, what I like is, you see when you do a docker ps, there's just some crazy line wrap that makes it unreadable. You could try to stretch it out full screen, but even then with a large font, it doesn't wrap for me. So I have this command, docker ps format table, names ID created at status. And look at that, much more compact. And you can apply other fancy formatting or grab whatever columns you want, but I really like this. So, okay, so let me just add this here. So this lists all of my current Business Central containers, and I want to stop all of these and remove all of them because they're just the containers, not images. I'm fine wiping them all. So I'm going to do, this is docker ps-aq, which just returns the list of all container IDs. So that serves as your list of the container IDs that you want. That gets passed into docker stop. So docker stop, $ parens docker ps-aq. And this takes a few seconds. And there we go. So now if we do Docker PS, we get nothing. Now, if I add a -a on the end there, that just tells us, tells Docker to show all containers even if they're stopped. And you see we have a status of exited, so we are good to go. We have stopped all containers. Okay. And then we are going to, I believe it was Daniel on Twitter who pointed me to this. I was previously removing the containers directly via the Docker command, Docker rm, but this is the remove BcContainer command from NavContainerHelper. And a couple things nice about this: it removes the container, removes the icons from your desktop, and we should be able to see that work. And I'm guessing, we'll check, I'm guessing it removes the host entry, the IP address and host name from the host, Windows host file. So there's probably a way to get fancy with PowerShell to do this with all of them, but let me just try these and see what happens. So there's our container ID, and another tip from Daniel is to just type the first few characters of the container ID. You don't need to type the full thing. As long as those first few characters or digits are unique, it knows what to do. So let's see if that works with remove BcContainer. Okay, so it works with Docker commands for sure. So now let's see if that 3C went away. Cool, it did. So now we just do 0E. Let's see if we can do comma F7. Nope. Okay, so I think there's a way to do consecutive. F7 space 52. No. Okay, so this is not a standard Docker command, but let's see what we got here. Remove 52. Then we have 63. Then we have 21. Okay, so now we should have nothing. Cool. All containers are removed now. Excellent. Now I see that I have icons on my desktop still. So that is interesting. It did not remove the icons from the desktop. I thought that's one of the things it did. So don't know why. I don't know if that's because I broke some association or what, but I'll just remove those manually. And now out of curiosity, let's go to System or C Windows, System 32, drivers, etc. And let's pull up the host file. Okay, so interestingly, I thought it removed it from the host file. It did not. So I'm just going to clear that out for housekeeping purposes. Okay. So we have removed all containers. Now, I would like to remove unused and old images. And as far as I'm concerned, I can remove all the images because I don't know what the latest one is. However, I do want to preserve one image, and that is the generic OS image. So if I type Docker images, we see a lot of sandboxes, all sorts of versions, because I have a daily script that automatically rebuilds my test container based on whatever the latest build is. And you'll see this one here is the 1339 generic OS container. And I believe that corresponds to my Windows Server 2019 build /UBR. I forget what, something build revision. So that's 177631339, and that's what you're seeing here. So that's the generic OS build. So I don't really gain anything by deleting that. That's going to be the same. If I delete it, I'm going to have to re-download it anyway, and that's 10 gigs. So I'd rather not re-download that. But I'd love to get rid of the rest of these. So, and this looks like an orphaned image. So this one is no longer valid because it has this tag of none. So I haven't done this yet, but I copied in these potential strings to see. So this Docker images lists everything. Now what I want to do is I want to use Docker RMI to remove multiple images, but I need to send Docker RMI a specific list of images I want to remove. So this is just kind of a learning PowerShell moment. So there's this approach. So you can do Docker images and then type the repository. And so that tells me, that shows me the generic image, one of which I want to keep, the other I don't want. I kind of want the inverse to this. I want the ones that do not have a tag of 1339 generic. So I found this. Rather than try to use the filtering of the Docker images command, you can pipe Docker images into the select string, I don't know what it's called, commandlet module of PowerShell, and it acts like Unix grep. So in the Unix world, you'll see all these PowerShell and, Docker examples that use grep. So they'll pipe output from Docker into grep, and that's how they select records. I don't want to install grep and have to deal with that. It will have some advantages because you can reuse those commands, but it looks like the native version of grep is select-string. So I'm going to try that. So now, if I use Docker images pipe select string pattern generic, voila. This tells me, this allows me to find the one image that I do not want to delete. So how do I find the list of images that I do want to delete? Well, there is a -not match option for select string. So as long as it does not contain generic, it should find it. So let's try that. And there we go. So this is exactly what I want to delete. I want to remove all of these images. I don't quite know how to do that. So there is this. Okay, so that gives me just the image IDs. And if I pair that with my select string pattern generic not match, that should give me the IDs of the images I want to delete. And if we go back up here, I see that 0A was the image I wanted to keep, and I do not, 0A147. Oh, 0A147. Bummer. Okay, let's see if I can work through this. Docker images -q. So this isn't going to work on Docker images -q because -q only provides the image ID. And there is no way to, or the word generic does not appear in this list. Okay, so can I return, can I return, how do I get, okay, so let me just hack this for now. What if I say that rather than generic, this isn't the proper way, but I know this is the image ID I want to keep, right? This 0A1. So instead of filtering out generic, let me filter that out. Oh, come on. No match. There we go. Okay, so now I do not see the 0A147. Cool. So now we have a list of images that we are willing to delete. And what they do then is you get your list of images, then you pipe it to Docker RMI. So let's give that a try. And pipe it. I don't know if you can do a double pipe. We are about to find out. It's doing something. Look at that. Okay, while that's working, let me open a second window. And we are going to let's just do Docker images. Okay, so my generic is still there. 15394 is getting deleted now. Ooh, looks like we have some contention. There we go. Okay, so the list is getting shorter. So this takes a few minutes, but I want to take every opportunity I can to learn the PowerShell commands because, you know, the better I know them, or the more at least I document them and put them in my blog, the easier it is for me to do maintenance later. And okay, so we're cranking away. Let's check on how we're doing. Okay, so we have 5 remaining plus my generic. And these are pretty hefty, 10 gigs, 14 gigs, because these are my named images. So these are my old named images. You see test1, BC dev1, test1. Because I have multiple images, or multiple BC versions for my sandboxes, it's retaining all of those over time. So the great thing about my current automated script is every morning it downloads the latest artifact, builds me a new named image, and then builds a new container for me with that latest version. But I don't currently have a cleanup routine. So even though I only have one test container, I have 8 test1 images sitting around, and they just pile up. So I think I need to enhance my automated script to do this cleanup. So kind of cool. Okay, so that is done. So how are we doing? Docker images. Cool. And let's just see what Docker images -a. We are super clean. Looks good. Let me close this down. Okay, so we have removed unused images. Check. Uninstall NavContainerHelper. Okay, so I want to remove NavContainerHelper. And before I do that, I'm just curious. I should only have one version installed. So let's do this. Just confirm that. Excellent. I have an automated script that updates NavContainerHelper as well. So I should only have one version. It should wipe all the other prior versions. And normally I do a fresh install of this, but let's go back over here. We are going to do I'll just do the stable release. So I will not use the allow pre-release for now. I'll play with that later. Before I do that, let me check my PowerShell get version. So get installed module PowerShell get. That's weird. Okay. I guess I don't have it. So let me just do that first. So we're going to install the PowerShell get module from the PS Gallery. Now, I believe Freddy's instructions use the force parameter. Let me just check. Yeah, so let me switch back to that. So in his example, he's using -force. And the one reason why I don't like to do that is, when I'm doing it manually at least, is because that can force it to install a second version. And it won't warn you with the -force. It won't stop you and say, hey, you already have a version of this installed. Are you sure? It just kind of walks right past that. And so if you're doing that in a larger script, you probably won't see that message. So when I'm doing things manually, I do not use -force so that I see all the warnings and error messages and I have to stop and say yes. So in this case, it's just saying, are you sure you want to trust this repository? I will say yes. Okay, and so there you go. Version 1001 of PowerShell is already installed at this location. To install 2241, you need to use the force parameter. Now, what's odd is that when I did get installed module, I didn't see it. Maybe there's a -a. Get installed module, all versions, name. So get installed module, PowerShell get repository PS gallery. No, it doesn't like repository. No match was found. But what's weird is no match was found at PowerShell get 1001. So that kind of tells me I have version 1001. And I have a separate command that says, actually I've seen a separate command. Is it list? Gosh, let me pull up my blog again. And get install module, update module. Update. There's a command to find what the latest version is. But as you can see, I do not have the latest version, and I'm a little concerned that if I do install this latest version, and yeah, see, it will install, this command will install version 2241 in side by side with version 1001. At least with BcContainerHelper, I do not want to do that because PowerShell can be unpredictable and can call the older version sometimes, which I experienced. So rather than try and do a force, let's try this. Let's try the command we used to update. So let's try, instead of update BcContainerHelper, oops, there we go. Let's update PowerShell get, see if it lets us do that. And you don't need a force with update module, I don't believe, as long as you're okay with any dialogues. It was not installed by using install module, so it cannot be updated. That's probably why I'm not seeing it. It's like a base module, and oh, I can't remove it because yeah, if I remove it, I can't use get to get new modules. Okay, so I give up. Let's just go for it. So let's install, let me just copy it. Install module PowerShell get PS gallery dash force, and I'll see what the consequences are long term. Okay, so it is installing. And that was quick. Okay, so now let's install module BcContainerHelper. Now, hold up. I don't even remember if I uninstalled BcContainerHelper. I don't think I did. Can't remember. Okay. Let's try this again. Install module BcContainerHelper. Untrusted repository. Of course we trust it. Install. Okay. That was pretty slick. So we have installed the new PowerShell get. I belatedly uninstalled BcContainerHelper, and we installed BcContainerHelper. Pretty cool. So now let's give it a try. Now that which you may see in your production environments, now that I have installed this, I'm curious if my automated container build script still works. So let's go into PowerShell ISE, pull up my new BC test container v2, which I have a blog post on, and I called it v2, but I have 1.1 here. And so this automatically downloads the or it automates the process of calling new BC container. Now let me just make sure that I don't have a reference to nav anywhere in here. Okay, I don't. So there's another one that I'm going to need to update. So this just gets the date, transcript file, it sends me an email, BC PowerShell, there's my login. Remove BC container, I'm assuming that command still exists. New BC container, that command should still exist. And the rest is just logging and sending an email. So let's go for it. See what happens. Oh, okay. So I have to, the secure strings are user specific. And I have, let's stop that. I have to use a different secure string when I'm logged in as my user. Where is the Gmail? There it is. DBC PowerShell. Okay, and it is Gmail_sendo. Okay, when I run it manually, I have to do this. Need to switch that over. Okay, so oh, looks like I already have one. I don't know why this is hanging. How do you cancel? Abort. Looks like it is stuck downloading. And I have a tool to monitor. Yeah. Okay, so it's going to run, but it's not going to send the email. So it should complete. So that's okay. Let's see if it runs. It's at least downloading the artifact. Okay, so it looks like it's working okay. We got our build log, BcContainerHelper, version 1.02. Okay, so it aborted at the download step. So let's try this again. I'm going to open the correct script, which has my correct email login. Okay, perfect. And let's run this. Much better. Okay. Let me update this setting. So I want it in megabits per second. And Task Manager also gives us the general idea. Oops. Okay, so we just hang out for a few minutes as it downloads this. Roughly, last time I checked, it was 650 megabytes. And if you're curious about the artifacts, I believe this is what it looks like. So if I go into my temp directory, we see this FE4 artifact, and there it is there. And this is the one that just finished. So when it finished, it looks like it's about 544 megs. So that is the size of an artifact, and that is much smaller than the old artifacts, which were probably in the 10 plus gig. Okay, so there it goes. Just downloaded. And here comes our container build. Actually, our named image build. There's our container OS version, 1339. Host OS version matches at 1339. And it's downloading something else. I thought that was the artifact that downloaded, but it's a 4D87. Oh, okay. What was the old one? FE4. Okay, so it unpacks it to temp and then deletes it. And that was building my test image, and now it's downloading some other artifact information. See how big that one is. 114 megs. Okay, I didn't realize they were separate, or there were separate downloads. So wild guess is the first artifact is for core software dependencies, and then this is the sandbox version. So we see 16.4. So yeah, there we go. Downloading platform artifact, whereas this is downloading application artifact. Cool. So I'm assuming these are the, application artifact, platform artifact. Huh. So two different artifacts, both 16.4. And there's a 4D8. So if I just make a copy of that, we can see what's in it while the other one's downloading. So there we go. Application.us, configuration packages, extensions, Business Central US, back file. And then that's the 310. That was the 310. So here's the 4D8. That's 625. So in total, these two files are about 1.1, 1.2 gigs. And this one has applications, configuration packages, service tier, test assemblies, web client. Okay, cool. So that's kind of neat. It's expanding that file, the 4D8. And it is downloading other dependencies. And I'm not sure how long this normally takes with BcContainerHelper. So if I go to my email notifications for my automated build log here, oh, wow. This one only took 1 minute, 19 seconds. So that must have just been a rebuild of the container because the artifact stayed the same. And then this one took 6.5 minutes. And this one took 11:17. So there's quite a bit of variance in how long it takes. I suspect it depends on what it's having to download and my download speed at 8 a.m. That's 4 minutes 11. So not too bad. Okay, so we'll see how long this one took with the new BcContainerHelper, and the generic image was there, so it's for sure had to download all the artifacts and build a new named image. Okay, so it looks like the named image should be done by now. So if we do Docker images, okay, so there's our generic image. So our named image isn't quite ready. It's building up the underlying dependency images. Or we can just do this. Oh, look at that. It does show the none. Okay. Almost done. Starting service tier. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I've been on the wrong screen this whole time. You've been looking at a PowerPoint for 15 minutes. Sorry about that. The perils of live streaming. I forget to press a button. So anyway, I was just running my automated container build script, so you really didn't miss much. And I was looking at the zip files that it downloads. These are the artifacts. So in my case, it's downloading to my user app data local temp directory. And you see there is a 545 megabyte file and a 625 meg file. And those are the, I think it called it the platform and the application artifact files. So roughly 1.1, 1.2 gigs there. And it then unzips those and uses the files in there to perform installation. So let me just show you. That's what's in this first one. And I don't know the nav BC files well enough to know what these really are, but I can guess. There's a Cronus FLF, excuse me. Here's a bunch of apps. So these are the kind of standard apps that might be installed. And this is my automated log. Okay, so installation complete. Installation took 167 seconds. I'm not quite sure what that elapsed time represents in the process, but it's a subset of the overall new BC container process. So let's just do a check of our containers here. We still don't have the named image. Okay, there we go. And there's our named image. So we saw those things fly by. Now this looks new. Sandbox USMT. I'll have to look that up. I didn't think that... Huh. I don't recall seeing that before. That looks different. Let's see if it says. Okay, intermediate container. If I may have read about what the MT means before, but I have already forgotten. Okay. So our named image is now created. Now we're just waiting for our container to get set up. Okay, and now we can do a docker ps. And let's see if I have that file handy. There we go. There's probably an easier way to do this, but so far that -- format works. Okay, so there's our test1 container up about a minute, and setting SA, super user. Seems like it took a while. Oh, bummer. Didn't fail. Okay, but we see elapsed time 10 minutes. Okay, so it just seems longer. And my authentication is failing. So I need to rebuild my Gmail login secure string file. But everything is logged in this container build transcript file. So there we go. Took 10 minutes to do the build once we had a fresh BcContainerHelper installed. Now we do have the test1 web client shortcut on the desktop, and that should be admin password and while that loads, the one thing I believe I am going to need to change is the script. There we go. The script that updates my nav container helper. Since I am now using BcContainerHelper, I don't want it to automatically install nav container helper again. So I'm going to update nav container helper v2, and let me just do a save as, and let's call this update BcContainerHelper v1, v1.0, and this is August 13th. Okay, so if we maximize this, and this is all on my blog, by the way, this script. And we want to uninstall module name. Okay, so let's find our module name. Is BcContainerHelper. Excellent. So I just changed this. BcContainerHelper. Okay, and instead of doing this, let's do module name. Okay, that should work. And we'll do the same thing here. And BcContainerHelper. Module name isn't defined until down here. So let's move it up here. Okay, and let's search for nav. Once again, we have no navs. Let's search for module name. Okay. Okay, cool. Now let's save that, and let's see what happens. Now my email's not going to work because my Gmail, but what I can do is I can run this in my scheduled task, and it should work. So let me just update my scheduled task, since I'll need to do that anyway. Update BcContainerHelper. Now, unfortunately, you cannot rename scheduled tasks. It's really annoying. The workaround is you export it, you modify that export file, and then you import it. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change my action. And let's go to, instead of BcContainerHelper v2, we have BcContainerHelper v1. I will save that, and I will save that. Okay, and so let's run it. Now that should be sending me an email, but the last one I see is August 3rd. BcContainerHelper. So it looks like it hasn't been running. It says it ran this morning, but I didn't get an email. So I may have an email issue. It should be logging. And we can actually verify this on the D drive, BC PowerShell logs. And I see that BcContainerHelper did update at 7:45. And you're on the latest version. So it didn't have to do anything. So that's probably why it didn't get the email, because it hasn't had to update since then. Cool. Okay, so how are we doing here? We are ready. So let's just check our logs. We have the BcContainer update log, and we are on the latest version of BcContainerHelper. Cool. So now my BcContainer, I've updated to BcContainerHelper. I no longer have BcContainerHelper, and I've updated my script to automatically upgrade BcContainerHelper whenever a new version is available. So now I'm on 1.02. And I don't know if that includes the BcContainerHelper configuration file or not, but it's a good start. Okay, and that, I apologize for the whole showing the wrong screen. I have to work on that. That is a wrap up. I think we're doing good. Let's see, I already covered this, and we already dove in. So, thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to post a comment to YouTube, and I'll try and answer if I know the answer to the question, or at least let you know. So, have a good evening and enjoy.